He thought his years of experience would crush her. But in just 4 rounds, Caroline Leavitt reduced James Carville to stunned silence, and the internet exploded. But before we dive into this story, I want to hear from you. Comment down below, where in the world are you watching from? Let's light up this comment section. And hey, if you love stories with high drama, power shifts, and the kind of moments that leave people speechless, you're in the right place. Tap that subscribe button right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss when we drop the next chapter in these powerful, untold stories. In a fiery head-to-head debate aired on News Nation, 27-year-old White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt went toe-to-toe with veteran Democratic strategist James Carville. What started as a generational and ideological clash turned into a defining moment for the MAGA movement. From personal attacks involving Melania Trump to heated battles over tariffs, corruption, and foreign policy, Leavitt didn't just defend Donald Trump. She systematically dismantled every accusation thrown her way, leaving Carville stunned and social media ablaze. This breakdown covers the pivotal moments, arguments, and viral fallout that transformed a televised debate into a political watershed. The set of News Nation is lit like a battleground, not with smoke or fire, but with tension, sharp spotlights, and the weight of 2 political titans about to collide. The air is thick with anticipation, the studio audience silent but leaning forward, fully aware they're witnessing more than just a political debate. This is a generational duel, an ideological clash between the past and the future. Out from backstage walks Caroline Leavitt. Only 27 years old, she commands the room like a seasoned veteran. With a confident, composed smile and sharp eyes scanning the audience, she walks to the podium as if it's the ring in a championship fight. She's not just a press secretary. Tonight, she is the face of a movement, young, fierce, loyal, and absolutely fearless. This isn't just another debate for her. It's a chance to prove that the new generation of conservative leadership isn't just rising. It's already here. And then comes her opponent, James Carville. He's 80, but he enters like a fighter who's never lost a round. A legend in Democratic strategy. The man who helped put Bill Clinton in the White House. His reputation precedes him, and so does his weapon of choice. Biting sarcasm, sharp political jabs, and a southern drawl that makes even the cruelest lines sound like dinner table banter. He doesn't shake. He doesn't smile. He surveys the room like he owns it. Then the moment arrives. Carville takes the mic first, and with the smug grin of a man ready to dismantle his opponent, he fires the opening salvo. "Come on, folks," he says, his eyes flicking toward Leavitt like a predator testing his prey. We all know the Trump administration was a circus, and standing center stage was the so-called perfect family he tried to prop up. There's a pause. The audience shifts in their seats. A ripple of unease spreads through the room. Melania? Poor thing's not a first lady. She's a pawn, a prisoner in a scandal-ridden marriage. Stormy Daniels, hush money, tabloid trash. And now we've got Miss Leavitt, the perfect mouthpiece for a man who can't even control his own mouth, let alone a country. He smirks. He thinks he's drawing blood. The audience reacts, a mix of chuckles, gasps, and murmurs. Carville thrives on this. This is his world. Drama, attack, shock. He leans on the podium with a look that says, "Beat that." But Leavitt doesn't move. Not a twitch. She just stares ahead, cool, composed, unreadable. Her fingers gently curl around the edge of her podium. Her eyes glint, not with rage, but with something far more dangerous, focus. She lets the silence hang, letting Carville's words soak the room like gasoline. And then, without raising her voice or breaking her poise, she prepares to strike the match. That's the moment everyone realizes. This won't go the way Carville thinks it will. The silence after James Carville's attack hangs in the air like smoke after a gunshot. The audience leans forward, expecting Caroline Leavitt to stumble, to scramble, to defend herself. But she doesn't rush. She doesn't flinch. She waits, long enough to make Carville raise an eyebrow. And then, with a voice as steady as steel, she strikes. Her tone is calm, almost gentle, but every word is a precision-guided missile. "Mr. Carville," she says, "you seem to love gossip, but this is a political debate, not a late-night talk show." The room shifts, a few chuckles bubble up. Carville's grin twitches. Mrs. Melania Trump is a strong, independent woman, a role model far above your cheap attacks. The Trump family isn't your entertainment. I'm here to defend the truth, not fuel fabricated stories. The crowd holds its breath. Carville looks like he's ready to jump back in, but before he can, Leavitt raises her hand. A subtle gesture, but with weight, and he stops cold. She has the floor, and everyone knows it. You want to talk about scandals? She continues. Look in the mirror, Mr. Carville. You've built a career on smoke and mirrors and personal attacks. When you run out of solid arguments, you default to smears. If you want to talk about ethics, bring evidence. Or better yet, save your tabloid stories for your podcast. The audience laughs, louder now. Trump supporters cheer. Even a few neutrals start to nod. But Leavitt doesn't break stride. President Trump is focused on moving America forward, building a strong economy, securing the border, and restoring peace. What happens in his personal life? That's not your business, nor anyone else's in this room. You want to know what matters? Ask the American people. Ask the families who are seeing jobs return thanks to President Trump's policies. Carville, his voice rising slightly now, cuts in, his footing slipping. You're dodging? Miss Leavitt. Stormy Daniels isn't a small matter, and Melania, but she doesn't let him finish. Mr. Carville, she says coldly, please stop. Her voice is sharp, controlled, ice with a heartbeat. You have no right to judge Mrs. Trump or anyone in their family. If you want to talk about scandals, tell us about the failures of the Democratic campaigns you led. Or have you forgotten the massive budget deficits under Clinton, the man you proudly worked for? The audience explodes into applause. Some rise to their feet. MAGA hats are raised high. Carville, for the first time, looks visibly shaken, his hands gripping the podium like a man trying not to fall. Leavitt, still poised, gives the faintest of smiles. Not smug, confident. She turns to the audience, her voice now warm but still cutting through like a bell. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Carville wants us buried in drama so we forget what actually matters. The economy, our families, our future. President Trump isn't perfect, but who among us is? What we need isn't perfection. We need a fighter, and that fighter is Donald J. Trump. The camera pans to Carville. His face is stiff, his eyes blink rapidly, searching for a lifeline. But Leavitt doesn't give him one. If you want to keep telling stories, Mr. Carville, she finishes, I suggest you try writing fiction. It might sell better than your baseless accusations. And with that, she nods. Just once, the audience rises. The cheers echo. And across the stage, James Carville, the political veteran, stands frozen, watching a new generation rise right in front of him. The applause from Leavitt's last line hasn't even faded when the moderator steps in, his tone calm, composed, but clearly trying to regain control of a room that's now tilted entirely in one direction. Thank you both for that exchange, he says, his eyes darting between the now flushed James Carville and the poised Caroline Leavitt. He turns to the camera, resetting the stakes. A president's personal life can make headlines, he says, but what directly impacts Americans every day is the economy. He turns sharply to Carville, the tension retightening. Mr. Carville, during his term, former President Trump imposed a series of tariffs aimed at protecting domestic manufacturing, particularly against China. Critics say the result was rising prices and global tension. Supporters say it brought jobs home. What's your take, not just economically, but strategically? Carville clears his throat, visibly trying to recover his footing. His usual fire has dimmed, but his voice still carries that drawl, though now tinged with frustration. Look, folks, he begins, gesturing with both hands as if pulling the audience back in. Trump calls himself an economic genius, but what we got was a disaster. Tariffs jumping from 20 to 145% on China? That's not leadership, that's gambling. It wiped out trillions of dollars in trade value. Businesses struggled, consumers paid the price, allies turned their backs. He jabs a finger toward Leavitt's podium. And you, Miss Leavitt, you're standing there defending this? How do you sleep at night knowing Americans are paying for this gamble? The audience shifts, a few murmurs. Some agreement, others shake their heads. But all eyes fall back to Leavitt. And once again, she doesn't blink. She steps forward, measured, steady. Her voice cuts through the room like a clean blade. Mr. Carville, she says, you call President Trump's trade strategy gambling. Maybe it's because you're only looking at the headlines, not the numbers. She lets that hang for just a moment. Tariffs were leverage, not punishment. They were tools to rebalance decades of unfair trade, and they worked. The crowd leans in. She continues. Over 350 companies moved their supply chains back to the U.S. during Trump's administration. That created 1.5 million jobs in just 2 years. Tariff revenue hit $130 billion, and that money didn't vanish. It was reinvested into roads, bridges, domestic manufacturing. She turns her full focus to Carville. You call that a disaster? I call that a victory for American workers. Applause breaks out. Quick, loud, sustained. Carville tries to interrupt, but she's still in command. Mr. Carville, she says, voice cool but direct, you advised Bill Clinton, didn't you? Under your leadership, the budget deficit exploded, manufacturing collapsed, NAFTA gutted American jobs, you sold the working class out to globalization, and now you're here criticizing a president who fixed those mistakes? Carville tries to push back, stammering. You're twisting the truth. Tariffs raised prices on consumers. But again, she silences him, not with volume, but with facts. Prices rising? That's just false. Inflation under President Trump was 2.3%, lower than any year under Barack Obama, whom you praised endlessly. Tariffs didn't cost Americans, they forced the world to take us seriously. She gestures out to the audience, not to rile them up, but to anchor her point. Ask any factory worker in Michigan or Ohio, they'll tell you, Trump brought jobs back. That wasn't a gamble, that was a promise kept. Carville is clearly rattled now, his voice cracking slightly. Miss Leavitt, you don't understand global economics. Tariffs disrupted supply chains, alienated allies. But Leavitt doesn't let him rewrite the moment. Disrupted supply chains? She repeats, eyes narrowing slightly. Under Democrats, we relied on China for 80% of our essential pharmaceuticals. Under Trump, that dropped to 50%. That's not disruption, that's national security. The crowd roars. The applause is thunderous. Chants of USA begin faintly in the back row. Carville wipes his brow, his collar now noticeably loosened. He looks like a boxer 2 rounds past his prime. Leavitt turns back to the audience, eyes shining but expression firm. Mr. Carville wants you to believe Americans are suffering. But look around. Unemployment hit a record low, 3.5%. Exports are up. Tax cuts reached working-class families. This isn't theory, it's results. She locks eyes with Carville one final time. You want to debate economics? Bring data. If not, maybe it's time you focused on writing your memoirs, because your arguments expired a long time ago. The applause that follows isn't just noise, it's a shift, a turning point. Carville looks down, his voice falters. His arguments, once fierce, now feel hollow. Caroline Leavitt stands tall, still calm, still composed, but with the unmistakable look of someone who just turned the tide. And somewhere in the shadows of the studio, a hashtag begins to trend. Leavitt wins. The debate is only halfway through, but Caroline Leavitt has already reshaped the battlefield. Her calm dismantling of Carville's attacks on Trump's personal life, her mastery of economic statistics, her unflinching control of the room. It's clear, this isn't just a performance, it's a political turning point. And yet, the moderator isn't done. His voice returns, steady but sharp, like a referee stepping into the ring to initiate the next round. Ladies and gentlemen, he says, we've covered personal lives, economics, and ethics, but one issue looms larger than ever: foreign policy. From global trade to international conflict, this is where America defines its place in the world. He pauses, letting the gravity of the topic sink in. Mr. Carville, he continues, you've advised presidents during turbulent global times. Under President Trump, we saw major changes, from withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement to unprecedented summits with North Korea and a hardline stance on NATO and China. Supporters call it strength, critics call it chaos. Where do you stand? Carville straightens, trying to recapture his footing. He takes a deep breath, eyes flicking briefly toward Leavitt, and begins. Let's stop sugarcoating it, he says. Trump turned America into a global laughingstock. He abandoned allies, destabilized NATO, picked fights with Europe, and those Middle East photo ops, they weren't peace, they were PR stunts. He raises his voice slightly, passion creeping in. He calls it America first. I call it isolation. Miss Leavitt, how do you justify that when our allies now question our reliability and enemies mock us? It's a bold swing, but Leavitt doesn't even blink. She stands still, taking in the room like a general before issuing orders. Then she steps forward, deliberate, powerful. Mr. Carville, she begins, you say Trump turned America into a joke. But I say you've been reading too many headlines and not enough briefings. She lets that land, then presses on. America first isn't isolation. It's prioritization. It means defending our interests, not begging for approval from foreign bureaucrats. Under President Trump, NATO members increased their defense spending by 25%. That's not weakness, that's leadership. The audience reacts immediately. Applause rises, but Leavitt stays composed, keeping her foot on the gas. You say the EU turned away from us? They came to the table to renegotiate fairer trade deals. You call that pushing them away? I call that demanding respect. Then, her voice sharpens, knife-edge precision. You mentioned the Middle East. Let's talk about it. President Trump helped broker historic peace agreements, the Abraham Accords, diplomatic ties between Israel and Arab nations once considered impossible. Those weren't stunts, Mr. Carville. Those were milestones, achieved without war, without bloodshed. Carville tries to interject, his voice pitching higher. You're whitewashing. Trump's approach was reckless. He pushed America to the edge. But Leavitt doesn't yield. Reckless, she says, her tone turning cold. Mr. Carville, under your party's leadership, we spent decades in endless wars. Iraq, Afghanistan, trillions spent, thousands of lives lost. Under President Trump, no new wars. First time in modern history. That hits hard. The room grows quiet. You want to talk about allies? Ask Israel. Ask Saudi Arabia. They don't just work with us, they respect us. Because President Trump did something no one before him had the courage to do. He kept his word. Carville, now visibly flustered, tries again. You don't understand global diplomacy. Trump alienated the world. Leavitt lifts a hand. It's not dismissive. It's final. I understand enough to know this, she says. Under Democrats, China manipulated global markets, stole intellectual property, bought silence. Under Trump, they faced tariffs, sanctions, accountability. That's not alienation, that's strength. The crowd is on its feet now. The applause is deafening. Carville lowers his head slightly. His hands grip the sides of his podium. His voice is barely audible as he mumbles something about long-term consequences. But the audience doesn't hear it. They're still reacting to Leavitt's clarity. She turns back to the people, her expression steady, her voice rising, not in volume, but in conviction. Mr. Carville wants you to be afraid of a strong America. But I say, we should be proud. Under President Trump, America didn't apologize. It led, it defended its borders, rebuilt its industries, and stood tall on the world stage. She pauses just long enough for the final words to hit. We don't need more weakness masked as diplomacy. We need courage, we need strength, and we need leadership that doesn't fold under pressure. The cheers erupt again. Not just applause, but chants. Caroline! Caroline! And at her podium, standing tall beneath the glare of the studio lights, Caroline Leavitt remains composed, steady, fierce. James Carville, once untouchable, now barely holding on, forces a smile, but it's thin, hollow. Even he can feel the shift. And outside that studio, social media is already on fire. The hashtag Leavitt wins isn't just trending, it's exploding. And the debate isn't over yet. The studio lights begin to dim, but the energy in the room is still white hot. The crowd hasn't stopped cheering. The chants of Caroline, Caroline echo off the walls long after the final bell of that foreign policy round. On stage, Caroline Leavitt stands tall, unshaken. James Carville grips his podium like a man trying to stay afloat in a storm he never saw coming. But the impact of this debate is no longer contained to the studio. Outside, the world is watching. And online, the internet has erupted. Within minutes, social media becomes a war zone of reactions, memes, edits, and trending tags. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtag #LeavittWins rockets to the #1 spot, not just in the US but globally. Political accounts, influencers, and everyday Americans are flooding the platform with reactions. Clips of Leavitt's sharpest moments are already being clipped, edited, and reposted at lightning speed. One post reads, Caroline Leavitt didn't just win, she taught Carville how to debate. MAGA star. Another viral meme shows Carville's frozen expression at the podium, captioned, when you think you're going to crush a 27-year-old, but she ends your career instead. On TikTok, Leavitt's standoff with Carville over foreign policy becomes a phenomenon. A 15-second clip of her saying, "We won't apologize," is synced to dramatic music, edited with slow-motion flashes. And within 30 minutes, it hits over 1 million views. The comments are a wave of enthusiasm. This woman is legendary. I didn't even care about politics, now I do. Carville brought drama, Leavitt brought data. One MAGA influencer posts a supercut of Leavitt's most powerful lines, overlaid with fire effects, fast cuts, and epic music. The caption reads, "Caroline Leavitt, debate queen." And it doesn't stop there. Gen Z, usually a demographic considered politically disengaged, suddenly joins the trend. Dance creators and content builders take her words and turn them into viral formats. One creator remixes her line, "We don't need apologies, we need strength," into a motivational audio clip paired with inspirational footage of everyday Americans. A top comment reads, "I didn't know who she was before tonight, but I'm a fan now." Even those on the left try to push back. Some Democrats argue Carville spoke the truth or claim Leavitt dodged the hard issues. But the replies come in like a tidal wave. The truth? She brought facts, he brought gossip. She answered with data, he just shouted headlines. One account tries to defend Carville, saying, "He's a legend. Leavitt is just a newbie." But the top voted response is brutal. Legend? More like a punchline. And she wrote the joke. Back inside the studio, audience members are slow to leave. They're too busy filming, live streaming, uploading reactions in real time. An older man turns to his wife and says, "This girl's going places, she's got fire." Near the exit, a group of college students is buzzing with excitement. "Did you hear how she shut him down on China? She made him look ancient, like he was stuck in the 90s. A young woman posts a selfie from her seat. She didn't just defend Trump, she defended us. And backstage, Leavitt's media team is watching the social storm unfold. Phones are lit up, notifications pouring in, clips going viral. One staffer turns to another and whispers, "She just made history." On TikTok, another big moment lands. A video posted by Bo Loudon, a close friend of Barron Trump, shows clips of Leavitt back-to-back with Trump himself. The caption reads, "Caroline Leavitt is the future of MAGA. Carville, retire." Within an hour, it racks up hundreds of thousands of likes. Meanwhile, in MAGA Facebook groups, conservative communities on Truth Social, and Reddit threads, her performance is being dissected line by line, not for criticism but for celebration. Her data on tariffs, her line about Melania, her slam on Carville's own scandals. Every detail is being replayed, quoted, and turned into digital folklore. Breitbart calls her MAGA's new flame. Fox News runs a headline, "Caroline Leavitt crushes Carville, defends Trump with ironclad facts." Even CNN, while critical, admits, whether you agree or not, Leavitt proved she's a formidable force. Carville never recovered. And as the final light in the studio fades to black, one thing is clear. Caroline Leavitt didn't just survive this debate, she dominated it. She didn't just trend, she took over. And while James Carville fades into the background, his legacy dented, his voice diminished. Leavitt is walking out of the building with something far more powerful than applause. She has the momentum. And for a movement like MAGA, momentum is everything. The debate may have ended, but the real explosion was just beginning, online. Caroline Leavitt's performance went viral within minutes. Leavitt wins topped global trends. Clips of her shutting down Carville flooded TikTok, X, and Instagram. One line, "Bring data or write fiction," became an instant soundbite. Gen Z creators turned her words into edits. Conservative influencers dubbed her the debate queen. Even moderates admitted Carville was outmatched. Meanwhile, Democrats scrambled. MSNBC called his performance a disaster. Post-debate polls showed Trump gaining support in swing states. A Michigan voter summed it up. "She didn't just defend Trump, she spoke for us." And while Carville faded into meme status, Leavitt was already being booked to headline rallies. Some say she's the future of MAGA. Others say she's already leading it. One thing's clear, Caroline Leavitt didn't just win a debate. She changed the game. As midnight settles over Washington, the storm online keeps growing. Caroline Leavitt, now a viral sensation, stands by her window overlooking the Capitol, not basking in the spotlight, but reflecting. Her phone buzzes nonstop. Messages pour in, "You gave us hope, you made history." But she's not chasing fame. She's focused, grounded by faith, family, and purpose. A photo of her husband and young son sits on her desk. She glances at it, smiles, and turns back to her debate notes. This wasn't just about winning a moment. It was about standing up for something bigger. And in that quiet moment, she whispers to herself, "We'll keep going." Because Caroline Leavitt knows, this is only the beginning. Caroline Leavitt didn't just win a debate, she became a symbol. a symbol of conviction, clarity, and courage in a political landscape clouded by noise. In just one night, she dismantled accusations about Melania, the economy, corruption, and foreign policy, not with drama, but with data, not with anger, but with unshakable calm. She proved something powerful. Youth isn't a weakness, it's a weapon. From press secretary to viral force, she stood her ground with the world watching and reminded Americans what leadership can look like when it's grounded in purpose, not performance. She didn't chase the spotlight, but it found her. Because this moment wasn't about ego, it was about ideals. Caroline Leavitt walked into that debate as a spokesperson. She walked out as the voice of a generation. And as the world watches what she does next, one thing is clear. This isn't the end of her story. It's only the first chapter. And there you have it, a debate that didn't just go viral, but may have redefined a political movement. Whether you agree with her or not, Caroline Leavitt made one thing undeniable. She showed up, stood her ground, and left a legacy on that stage. If you found this breakdown powerful, insightful, or even just surprising, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another deep dive like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this the start of something bigger? Or just a viral moment? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.